The rain and the briefcase, the rain fell in heavy sheets across the empty highway, drumming against the windshield of Sarah Mitchell's old sedan. It was the kind of rain that made the world feel smaller, more intimate, as if nothing existed beyond the glow of her headlights cutting through the darkness. Sarah gripped the steering wheel a little tighter, her knuckles white against the worn leather. In the back seat, her daughter Emma hummed softly to herself, clutching her stuffed rabbit and watching the raindrops race down the window. The little girl was only 4 years old, but she had already learned not to ask too many questions when her mother grew quiet like this. They were heading home from Emma's daycare, later than usual. Sarah's shift at the diner had run long again. Tips had been good tonight, though. She touched the folded bills in her jacket pocket, mentally calculating how much would go to rent, how much to groceries, how much to the stack of medical bills that never seemed to shrink. The highway stretched ahead, dark and lonely. Most people had the sense to stay home on a night like this. Sarah would have too, if she'd had a choice. That's when she saw him, an old man, walking along the shoulder of the road. He wore a dark suit that was now soaked through, and he carried a leather briefcase in one hand. His other hand was pressed against his head, as if he was confused or in pain. He moved slowly, unsteadily, like each step required enormous effort. Sarah's first instinct was to keep driving. It was late. She had Emma to think about, and these days you couldn't be too careful about strangers, especially on empty highways in the middle of nowhere. But something made her look in the rear-view mirror. The old man stumbled slightly, catching himself just before he fell. There were no other cars, no lights from houses nearby, just the rain and the darkness and a man who looked like he might collapse at any moment. Sarah pulled her foot off the gas pedal. "What are you doing, Mommy?" Emma asked. Her humming stopped. "Just helping someone, sweetheart," Sarah said softly, already steering the car onto the shoulder. She rolled down the passenger window as she pulled alongside the man. Rain immediately sprayed into the car, and she had to raise her voice to be heard over the downpour. "Excuse me, sir, are you all right?" The old man turned toward her. He had kind eyes, she noticed, despite the confusion written across his weathered face. His gray hair was plastered to his head, and he was shivering. I'm not quite sure," he said, his voice trembling. "My car, I think it broke down, or maybe I had an accident. I can't remember exactly." Sarah's heart clenched. Something was clearly wrong. The man looked to be in his 70s, maybe older, and the way he couldn't quite focus his eyes worried her. "Get in," she said, unlocking the doors. "Let me take you home. You can't walk in this rain." The old man hesitated, looking down at his soaked suit. "I'll ruin your seats. They've seen worse," Sarah assured him. "Please, you need to get out of this weather." He nodded slowly and opened the back door, sliding in beside Emma. The little girl studied him with solemn eyes, then offered him her rabbit. "Bunny doesn't like the rain," Emma said seriously. "You can hold him if you want." The old man's face softened into a smile. "That's very kind of you, young lady. What's your name?" "Emma." "Well, Emma, I'm grateful to meet you. My name is Robert." He accepted the rabbit gently, cradling it like it was made of glass. Sarah watched the exchange in the rear-view mirror, feeling some of her tension ease. She put the car back in drive and pulled onto the highway. "Where do you live, Robert?" she asked. He was quiet for a long moment. "Oak Street, number 40, 2 Oak Street, I think. Is that right?" Yes, that sounds right." Sarah knew Oak Street. It was in the nicer part of town, where the houses had big front porches and well-tended gardens. It would take her 20 minutes out of her way, but she couldn't very well leave him now. "I know where that is," she said, We'll have you home soon." As she drove, Robert sat very still in the back seat. Emma had gone back to watching the rain, satisfied that the stranger was safe now that he had Bunny for protection. Sarah found herself glancing in the mirror more than usual, checking on her unexpected passenger. "Do you have family?" she asked gently. "Someone we can call when we get you home." "A son," Robert said slowly. "Marcus. He visits on Thursdays, or is it Tuesdays? I always get confused." Sarah's chest tightened. Her own grandmother had started forgetting things like that before the end. Small details slipping away, then bigger ones, until the world became a confusing maze. "I'm sure he'll be happy to see you," she said softly. The drive seemed to take longer than usual, the rain creating a cocoon around them. But finally, they turned onto Oak Street. The houses here were indeed nicer, with street lamps that actually worked and sidewalks that weren't cracked. "Which house, Robert?" Sarah asked. "The blue one," he said, pointing, "with the white trim." Sarah pulled into the driveway of a beautiful two-story home. Lights were on inside, warm and welcoming against the storm. She helped Robert out of the car, keeping a steady hand on his elbow as they walked to the front door. Emma followed close behind, still carrying her rabbit. Before they could knock, the door flew open. A man in his 40s stood there, his face etched with worry and relief. "Dad, oh my God, Dad, where have you been? I've been calling the police, the hospitals." "Marcus," Robert said, recognition dawning. "I went for a drive, but I think something happened. I can't quite remember." Marcus wrapped his arms around his father, tears streaming down his face. Then he looked at Sarah, seeing her properly for the first time. "You found him," he said, his voice breaking. "You found him? How can I ever?" "I'm just glad he's safe," Sarah said, taking a step back. "You should probably take him to a doctor, just to make sure everything's okay." Yes, of course." Marcus wiped his eyes. "Please, wait just a moment." He disappeared inside, leaving Robert standing in the doorway. The old man looked at Sarah and Emma, his eyes clearer now than they had been on the road. "You have a good heart," he said to Sarah. "Your daughter is lucky to have you." Sarah felt her throat tighten. "We help when we can," she said simply. Marcus returned, pressing something into Sarah's hand. "Please," he said. "It's not enough, not nearly enough, but—" Sarah looked down. It was a check, made out for $5,000. "I can't," she began, trying to push it back. "Please," Marcus repeated, closing her fingers around it. "My father, he's all I have, and you brought him home. You didn't have to stop. Most people wouldn't have, but you did. Please let me do this." Sarah looked at the check again. $5,000. It would cover the medical bills, buy Emma new shoes, replace the car's bald tires, give them breathing room for the first time in years. She looked at Emma, who was watching her with those wise, patient eyes. Then she looked at Robert, safe now in his doorway, and finally at Marcus, who was looking at her like she'd given him back the most precious thing in the world. "Thank you," she whispered. As they drove away, the rain finally beginning to lighten, Emma reached forward from her back seat and patted her mother's shoulder. "Bunny says you did good, Mommy." Sarah laughed, feeling tears mix with the dampness on her face. "Tell Bunny thank you." The rain fell softer now, gentle against the windows. And for the first time in a long time, Sarah Mitchell drove through the night not counting her worries, but counting her blessings instead. Sometimes kindness circles back. Sometimes helping someone else means helping yourself. And sometimes, on a rainy highway, a single choice can change everything. The road ahead was still long, but tonight it felt a little less lonely.